SPYWARE. ICE brutality and invasion escalates. Welcome to Law and Society. Please subscribe. Today's episode is going to be a bit long, and then there are parts of it where I may get excited and be loud. I'm not shouting at you. I'm raising my voice because of the frustration that I have for what is happening. So, while National Guard deployments across the United States have been stopped by federal judges, and now the case is one of the cases from Chicago is pending before the Supreme Court, where the Supreme Court has given both parties time until, I believe, mid-November to get their briefings in. So there's an oral argument on the application of the restraining order on National Guard. Mind you, there's also another case in Illinois where private citizens and press have sued ICE and DHS for their activities and their raids in the Chicago area. Well, it's not limited to the Chicago area, and despite Judge Sarah Ellis's ruling in Illinois, not only are ICE agents not following the order provided by the court, it is actually going far and beyond and abusing their rights and violating people's constitutional rights. And so I'm going to run down and talk to you of instances of DHS ICE brutality across America. And then I'll read you excerpts from an NPR piece that should chill everybody to the bone that involves ICE DHS including spy software, spyware, so they can surveil on people, as well as face recognition programs that can identify people. And that, in so many ways, violates the Fourth Amendment right to privacy that people have, because you don't even need reasonable suspicion anymore if you have somebody who goes up to you, holds up a phone in your face, and because of some biometrics, you match somebody who they are looking for, but that's not you, but they take you anyway. That possibility is there because spyware is unregulated, and because the amount of technology that is going into spyware and these different surveillance programs, the legal system hasn't caught up to it to regulate it or to be able to put a stop to it. So first of all, with the brutality. In Chicago, brutal incidents include assaulting a non-verbal autistic American citizen, and you can see the video I have provided in the description box about it. There's a shooting of a woman where after shooting, the DHS people are recorded to be bragging about it. There's the detention of a preschool teacher at the preschool in front of the children. ICE is telling priests and clergy in the Illinois Broadview facility that they cannot pray outside the facility. That is a violation of your First Amendment rights to express and your First Amendment right to religious freedom. And if they are on public property, if they are in an area where they have a permit to be, if a permit is required, and if not a permit is required, a public place, they can pray all they want. And ICE DHS cannot do anything about it. And neither can state police, by the way. There are instances where Illinois State Police and other state police are aiding ICE and DHS. Governor Pritzker, this responsibility falls on you, squarely on you, to let the Illinois State Police know that their job is to stand between protesters and the federal agents while federal agents conduct whatever their federal duties are, and while protesters can continue to peacefully protest. It is not your job to go and charge protesters. You have your body cams on so you can record what's going on. Your law enforcement responsibilities is to keep the peace and not to beat and arrest protesters. You need to learn that. At Governor Pritzker, you need to let that be known and make that announcement sooner rather than later. The Human Rights Watch says, then and now, ICE officials stalk, seize people they suspect lack authorization to be in the country, separate families, and terrorize communities. In Los Angeles, ICE agents abducted a 1-year-old girl, and when the grandmother went to go pick up the girl, she says, when I picked up my granddaughter from the federal agents, she had a dirty diaper, a bruise on her face, and was developing a rash. She was exhausted and cried. My heart aches knowing this could happen to others, to my kids, or even me, despite being U.S. citizens. Can you imagine that? A 1-year-old, you just take him and you are so callous and unprofessional that you have abducted a 1-year-old girl and their grandmother has to go and pick her up, and she is traumatized and she is too young to express her trauma, but this will reflect as she grows up because this is a massive trauma that's been inflicted on this infant child. More in LA. ICE agents and federal law enforcement agencies have staged hundreds of raids in and around Los Angeles at places where Latino people work, shop, eat, and live with violence and disregard for human rights. ICE agents have arrested food vendors and their customers. They have targeted car washes and other businesses that have Latino employees and raided Home Depot parking lots where individuals look for work. Federal officials acknowledge agents consider a person's perceived race, ethnicity, or national origin as key factors in deciding whom to detain. And that goes back to Noam v. Perdomo, where Justice Kavanaugh went on to say that people's race, ethnicity, national origin can be used as part of reasonable suspicion, although they don't by themselves rise to the level of having reasonable suspicion. They can be contributing factors, thereby making racial profiling legal in a concurrent opinion by the Supreme Court. Because in the majority opinion, they allowed the ICE agents to continue doing what they are doing while the court reviews the case. One person arrested in Los Angeles lived in the United States for decades, working at an apparel store and for many years. He raised his children, all born in the U.S., and his family's primary source, and he is his family's primary source of financial support. His son watched masked federal agents shove him into a van, then handcuff other workers and push them into vans. His son said his father reported being kept handcuffed in the van with cold air blasting and no chance to use the toilet for almost 8 hours. The authorities denied him communication with his family for 5 days, even after moving him to Adelanto. Another man said he has lived in the United States for over 20 years, working at that apparel store for several years. On June 6th, federal agents closed off the entrances to the business, trapped him and others inside, handcuffed them, and kept them seated on the floor for several hours. Agents then forced them into a van and held them inside, shackled by their hands, feet, and waists overnight with the air condition running. Then in Maryland, there are countless videos, and I've posted the link for The Intercept in the description box, on social media showing similar scenes. One filmed in Hyattsville, Maryland, shows a man pinned to the ground by two ICE officers. He pleads in Spanish and English for someone to help him. During the incident, one of the officers drops his gun and fumbles for it. Then he appears to point it at bystanders. We remember that video. Emily Covington, an assistant director in ICE's Office of Public Affairs, told NPR in a statement that drawing a weapon can be used as a de-escalation tactic. Well, I thought that drawing weapons was always an escalation tactic, but I suppose it would be de-escalating if you pointed at peaceful protesters and they back off, and therefore the situation is de-escalated. But you really have to point a weapon to de-escalate the situation means that you have failed at all other options, and you haven't, and DHS officials, ICE officials aren't even going with the other options, which is properly investigate, properly particularized information that would lead to a reasonable suspicion on articulable facts that this person may be an undocumented immigrant. There's really no process for that happening. In LA, a lawyer on what's happening on ICE says there's a pattern of reacting violently and excessively against people that aren't interfering or otherwise causing harm to law enforcement, said attorney Matthew Borden. If I say I don't like the fact that you're in my community and you're kidnapping people or breaking apart families, I got a right to say that. And the government can't suppress that right, says Borden, who's representing journalists, legal observers, and protesters injured by federal agents in Paramount and across Southern California. Nationwide, agents have aimed firearms and sprayed chemical irritants at onlookers and protesters. They have launched tear gas and flashbang grenades into crowds. They have beaten the people they detained, struck them with batons, and restrained them face down in a prone position, pressing them into the pavement and restricting their ability to breathe. So, a federal judge, Judge Sarah Ellis in Illinois, who issued the temporary restraining order that I guess his name is Bovino, who's carrying out the operations in Illinois, and she issued a final injunction against a preliminary injunction against the federal immigration agents over their use of force in Operation Midway Blitz, telling lawyers for the administration that she found their evidence simply not credible. She says it is difficult to conceive how an injunction requiring the government to comply with the Constitution could possibly be harmful, U.S. District Judge Sarah Ellis said as she explained her decision. The Constitution of the government, once changed from freedom, can never be restored, Ellis said, quoting John Adams before reading the specifics of her injunction. Liberty once lost will be lost forever. The injunction bars federal agents from using force against journalists. Agents may ask journalists to change their location as long as they give them a reasonable time to comply and their new location still allows them to observe government operations. Federal agents cannot disperse crowds unless justified by exigent circumstances, means emergencies, as defined by DHS's use of force policy. There's a chance here that DHS may change their use of force policy. So the judge will probably be stumped again if they do that. They are also barred from using riot control weapons unless needed to stop harm to another person. The use of tear gas, pepper spray, or other less lethal weapons is banned unless such force is necessary to stop the immediate threat of physical harm to another. These are subjective standards, by the way, and that's why Illinois State Police needs to be there to record, not to play into the hand of ICE. This includes standing or kneeling on a person's body. Ellis further ordered that 2 separate warnings must be issued before any of those tactics are deployed, and that they must be issued at a volume at which people can reasonably hear them. The injunction also more strictly enforces identification requirements for agents, ordering that all agents who are not undercover or not uniformed have 2 separate places on their uniform that publicly identify them and their agency. All federal agents in uniform must also wear and activate their body-worn cameras. The only time a body-worn camera is not needed is during undercover activity and while conducting surveillance when enforcement is not planned. So when they're conducting their reasonable suspicion review on flights or in DHS-owned facilities. In San Francisco, this administration is not just removing the worst of immigrants who have criminal records. They are penalizing people who have done everything they can to function within the system and cooperate. The Department of Homeland Security this summer attempted to revive an attempted 2,000 deportation cases at San Francisco's immigration court that had been paused for years, even decades, worrying Bay Area attorneys who say the move targeted victims of crime and abuse. Shira Levine, a then judge in San Francisco's immigration court, said the department filed motions to recalendar all or nearly all of the cases that had been administratively closed in San Francisco immigration court. And as recently as today, human rights attorney Qasim Rashid posted a thread on Blue Sky talking about how the law enforcement abuse and law enforcement overreach is happening. And here is something that I talked about in the intro, and this is what he has to say. I and a few others stood on the cement barriers some 200 meters from the facility to take better pictures of the hundreds of protesters. Police told us to get down before we get hurt and added, "We can't force you, just asking." I got my shot and stepped down. 30 seconds later, I turn and see someone who stood standing on the barrier to get the shot he wanted. No warning, just arrest. And it was Illinois State Police arresting him. Why is Illinois State Police doing ICE's dirty work for them? Governor Pritzker needs to require state police to do their jobs, not ICE's fascist jobs. And I pointed this out when there was an attack on clergy, and Illinois State Police are the ones who pushed back the clergy and who were essentially assaulting peaceful protesters. So Governor Pritzker, again, you need to buck up and you need to make sure that Illinois State Police is doing its job of keeping the peace and recording what is happening for the Illinois Accountability Commission that you created. Now I will read you excerpts from a really disturbing piece that I read on NPR, and following are excerpts from it that raise alarm about Donald Trump's police surveillance state. The article is in the description box, and I urge you to read it. These are excerpts from it, but I urge you to read the whole thing. Immigration powers are being used to justify mass surveillance of everybody, said Emily Tucker, the executive director of the Center on Privacy and Technology at Georgetown Law. The purpose of this is to build up a massive surveillance apparatus that can be used for whatever kind of policing the people in power decide that they want to undertake. David Beer, the director of immigration studies at the Libertarian Cato Institute, which is a conservative institute, called it a big leap that DHS now can have agents in the field simply point their phone at someone's face and instantly learn details about them. The whole idea of anonymity in public, it's really gone when the administration or the government can immediately identify who you are, Bear said, adding that the technology could have a chilling effect on people's willingness to attend public protests. A group of Democratic senators led by Markey called on ICE in September to stop using the technology and answer questions about its use. ICE did not respond to their questions, and the senators renewed their demand on Monday. This type of on-demand surveillance is harrowing, and it should put all of us on guard, Markey told NPR. It chills speech and erodes privacy. It ultimately undermines our democracy. Facial recognition is unreliable, especially for people of color, and expressed concern the Trump administration would weaponize that technology against anyone who disagrees with the government. This is important, people. It applies to all of us, and we need to pay attention. Donald Trump is building a massive surveillance state with spyware where there is no legal regulatory stops that can be put on the use of this technology. At least courts haven't done so far. An ICE spokesperson said, "Nothing new here. For years, law enforcement across the nation have leveraged technological innovation to fight crime. ICE is no different, employing various forms of technology in support of investigations and law enforcement activities, aids in the arrest of criminal gang members, child sex offenders, murderers, drug dealers, identity thieves, and more, all the while respecting civil liberties and privacy interests." It does not respect civil liberties and privacy interests when you hold a phone in front of someone's face and you know everything there is to know about them, whether it be criminal or not. You have all of their information. Once the surveillance state takes full form, everybody's biometrics are in the government's possession, or virtually everybody. So it's possible that there are people who are not in the database who get misidentified and who are detained and renditioned illegally, even if they are U.S. citizens. DHS published a proposed rule that would expand the agency's ability to ask for biometric data from non-citizens and their U.S. citizen relatives when they apply to adjust their immigration status, such as to obtain a green card or citizenship. Under the rule, the agency could ask for facial images, iris scans, finger and palm prints, voice prints, and even DNA. I remember during my naturalization process, they took fingerprints, they took pictures, they took different pictures with turn to one of your ears. That's a picture that is on my citizenship certificate, but I don't remember them taking DNA. I don't remember them taking iris scans. I don't remember taking voice prints. So it's just going up a whole different notch. It has essentially complete access to your phone, said Jeremy Scott, senior counsel at Electronic Privacy Information Center, a legal and policy group focused on privacy. It is an extremely dangerous surveillance tech that really goes against our Fourth Amendment protections. We have a protection against unreasonable searches and seizure. And this is a violation of unreasonable searches and seizures when you stop somebody without any reasonable suspicion and put a phone in their face to identify them and tell you everything there is to know about them on your database, whether that be true or not. It's a dangerous, dangerous, slippery slope that we are sliding down. We're not on the ledge anymore. We're very much sliding down. Even if there weren't robust laws and regulations for rights protection, there are some norms that were seen as not really transgressible, basically, by all the presidential administrations up until this point. Not only are the norms gone, but this administration is willing to break whatever laws do exist. So that is where we are with ICE and the police state that is growing across the country. There's no stopping them, and even judges who have issued their orders, like Judge Sarah Ellis, her orders are being violated by DHS agents. And Bovino has said that he lied to the court. He should be held in contempt, and he should be put behind bars for violating the court order. I would urge that all suspicious incidents in Illinois be reported to the Illinois Accountability Commission. And I would urge that perhaps even all other instances also be uploaded to Illinois Accountability Commission. ICE brutality across other states, since Illinois is the only one so far that has created an accountability commission. They are keeping a record of what ICE is doing for a time when ICE agents can be held accountable, and so DHS heads, so can DHS head honchos. I would hope that this would include Illinois state police officers who are assaulting protesters and arresting protesters. It is not the Illinois State Police's job to get in the way of peaceful protesting, as long as it is not getting in the way of federal law enforcement. So it is the Illinois State Police and local authorities' jobs to stand between the peaceful protesters and ICE agents, so ICE agents can keep doing whatever it is that they're doing, their illegality notwithstanding, and ICE and protesters can continue to protest and record what is happening in front of them without being assaulted by Illinois State Police, whose job is to keep a record of what is happening, be witness to what is happening, and maintain the peace, not assault peaceful protesters. With that said, I've almost gone to 30 minutes. I thank you for your time. Please stay engaged. Please record any suspicious activity. I have provided you the link below of the Illinois Accountability Commission. You can upload your information there, especially if you're in Illinois. And if you're not, if you're in other states, see if you can upload your information onto the commission's website there as well, because it will keep a state actor, a state administered record of evidence that can be used later on to pursue justice against the people who are breaking the law left, right, and center. Thank you very much, and I'll talk to you soon.